Hi, my name is Sarah Hemminger, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Thread. I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, and during my time in high school, my high school best friend, at the time he was a senior, he was a varsity athlete, straight-A student, getting ready to go to the Naval Academy. And as we became friends, I was a freshman, so a little bit younger. People would say things about him. They would say that his mom was a drug addict, his dad was in prison. And where I grew up, those weren't your normal rumors that came about. It was more who made out with who on the weekend. And so it took a little bit of time, but eventually he filled in the blanks and explained what had happened. So years earlier, when he was in junior high school, his mom was in a really bad car accident. She was temporarily paralyzed and couldn't work. So as a result, she not only lost her job, but they lost their home and had to move from suburban Indianapolis into public housing. She became very depressed and addicted to the painkillers she'd been prescribed from the accident. And that began to spiral out of control to the point where she was not only using very heavily, but selling drugs. So he, in about an 18-month period, went from cornfields to really a crack house. And that coincided with his transition into high school. So his freshman year, he ended up missing more than 30 days of school. He failed most of his classes, and he was getting ready to basically drop out. And there was a group of teachers who at the time said, look, we're just not gonna let that happen. And so they would drive to his house, they would make sure he had breakfast, they would give him a place to do his laundry. And while they couldn't make the decision for him to get up and go to school, it's a lot easier to go to school if you have a ride versus have to take 3 buses. It's a lot easier to go to school if you've eaten breakfast and you're not hungry. It's a lot easier to go to school if you have clean clothing and you're not worried about smelling bad. So that really dramatically changed his life's course, and it changed mine. I, of course, thought, oh, this 18-year-old is so dreamy. And so it took a lot of effort on my part, but I eventually convinced him to date me and marry me. And so we've been married for almost 17 years now. So that was kind of part one, but that didn't really influence Thread being founded until years later, where I was, he came out to the Naval Academy. I followed him out here. I selected my college in a somewhat flaky way, which was what was close in proximity to him. And I, found myself as a graduate student in biomedical engineering at Hopkins. And, most of my friends from undergrad had moved away. I didn't have any family in the area, and I was really struggling in school. And I was just not sure what was wrong, because on paper everything looked good, right? I had gotten married, I had bought a house, I was in this world-class graduate program, but I was really unhappy and I couldn't quite figure out why. And around, it was in January, I literally just was stopped at a street light, and the thought that crossed my mind as I opened my eyes and really saw for the first time that there was Dunbar High School on this side of the street, and you had public housing on this side, and then Hopkins right in front of me, was kind of the counterintuitive thought was, actually felt more comfortable and confident forming relationships with kids in the high school. So I didn't know anyone in the high school. I didn't know anything about the school system, but I just felt more capable of forming relationships with them than my own peers at Hopkins. And so the way Thread was really founded was out of my desire to find a way to connect with other people. And it just, in my irrational brain, seemed logical that there must be other students at this high school that are similar to my husband, that are really extraordinary, but are facing extreme challenges outside of school and maybe even in school, but that in many ways they could help me more than I could actually help them.